In this video, we are going to create a home lab. Now, in our videos, you are looking at instructor when they are using labs, and you must be wondering, how can I create a similar type of lab? So our instructor is using JobSkillShare labs. We give our members resources so they can access all these servers on the web browser, and they don't have to create their own labs in their homes or buy resources. So this is the powerful feature that we offer. So we have many labs. So our instructors are usually using different type of labs to cover some of the materials on the server. For example, in this course, you're seeing this lab is being used with other server labs as well. So how can we kind of create similar type of environment? Of course, when I create this video, this is going to be just on Windows and my own laptop with my resources, and there will be no support provided to anyone that are taking these courses and trying to replicate it in their home systems. We just cannot provide that sort of support. So you have to reach out to the community of the virtualization, whatever tool you're using in your Windows or Mac or Linux environment. You have to reach out to the communities of that type of tools to be able to fix your issues. So let's get started. So let me just first show you when an instructor open and launch a lab, they see something like this, where they get into a lab system and then they launch it from here, and then they see a whole lab system like this. And then of course they have step-by-step outcomes and exercises and things like that. So instructor is following all of that, screenshots and everything that's provided. But in this case, if you're watching a video course and you're like, okay, you know what, I have resources at my home and I want to create something similar. So let's just go over it. This is the lab that, we give a pre-built domain controller. So at this point, you're taking a systems administrator course, server administrator course. I assume you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, and you think like, what did he just say, domain controller? This means you're lacking extreme fundamentals, and you have to go back to our basic courses that we have on our platform or on our profile. So you have to actually go over those IT support courses to understand what I'm talking about when it's too basics. So the first thing is we give pre-built domain controller to make it easier, because you don't have to create domain controller again and again. Then we provide multiple devices in one lab for specific type of courses. So there are many labs available. But if we are going to build a home lab, we're not going to replicate every single thing that is provided in these labs, because they may be built for something else. And our goal is to just learn about servers. So the first thing we need to look into the naming, PLab DC01, which is called Practice Lab Domain Controller 01. Then we have a PLab M01, DM01, that's Practice Lab Domain Member 01. So this is connected to this domain. So this server is joined to the domain. Now at this point, you know what I'm talking about when I say join the computer to a domain. That is IT support skills you have learned. And this is another server. Then there's a standalone server right here. And then there is this Windows 10. So in our lab, we don't have to create all of this different type of machines, because most of the people, 90% will not have that kind of RAM in their laptop. So we're going to keep things little minimal in our lab so you can follow it. So we're going to definitely create a domain controller, and we will need at least minimum 4 GB RAM. In this machine, you can see there's a 4 GB RAM, and they're using 2016 data center. We're going to use 2022 and brand new server. So we're going to also create another server, and that is something we're going to make one domain controller, another going to be a standalone server. We're going to install that from scratch and then join it to the domain. So it'll be like PLab M01, and then we'll jump to the PLab Win11, which is, we're not going to use Windows 10, we're going to use Windows 11. So PLab DC01, PLab M01, and PLab 11. And then you can use these two servers in your home environment, and whatever you see whenever instructors are covering, try to see if you can replicate it. If you cannot, then of course you may want to jump onto these labs and not just take that headache, and learn the skills like a server administrator in a little more easier way on these labs. If you don't want to invest into these labs, then you're free to do your own computer, use your own computer, servers, whatever you have. But just know that we don't provide any support in that type of environment, because it's your home environment. All right, so the first thing we need to do is go to new browser and type google.com and then search for VirtualBox. Then we are going to click on the Oracle VM VirtualBox. VirtualBox.org is the website. Make sure you click on the correct one. And now we're going to click on download. Now this is something that I have covered in our IT support courses as well. This is why I'm not going to go in details about what is virtualization, what is a requirement. At this point, if I assume that you know that type of basics, you are a server admin or you're becoming a server admin and you're getting into more practice. So I'm not going to go into that sort of details. You should cover that in our fundamentals or IT support courses if you feel like virtualization is something brand new to you. What is a VirtualBox, or all of that RAM stuff and all that stuff. So I'm not going to go through that at this point. You know where to go. So here, VirtualBox is the environment. We're going to use Windows, so we're going to click on Windows, and it's going to start downloading VirtualBox. While this is downloading, just to give quick reminder that I'm using a very powerful laptop which has 64 GB RAM, a lot of space, so I won't have any issues creating 3 virtual machines. So if you are doing this right now and like you are disregarding that requirement that I just mentioned, that you should go back, learn about virtualizations if you are so new, then of course you're going to have issues. And if you have issues, the first thing is that make sure you have a beefed up laptop or desktop, or good SSD, RAM, everything is covered. If you still have issues, there's a documentation section and there's a community section. You should come and get some help over here if you are having issues. So once you download the VirtualBox, we're going to go ahead and run it. It may ask you for the permission, and it will take a few seconds to check your system. All right, so we're going to go ahead and click on next, and we're going to click yes to that. And we're going to click yes and install. And here we're going to start the VirtualBox, and let's go ahead and start it. So this is the VirtualBox that you have learned in our IT support courses. We have created a whole lab on that as well, but I did it very quickly here. So we got the VirtualBox. So what should we do next? We are going to have to download some ISOs for 2022 server, and then create a PLab DC01, which is a domain controller on our VirtualBox. That's the first thing we need to do to replicate it just like PLab DC01. So let's go ahead and download Windows 2022 server. In your Google search, type Windows Server 2022 ISO download and scroll down and click on Windows Server 2022 Elevation Center. Once you click on this, you will see this page that will come up, and then it will ask you to select the download. So of course you can download it in this VHD on Azure and stuff like that. We're gonna download the whole ISO. I want to show you and also talk about how people use it in the works as well. So of course in the work environment we do download the ISO most of the time, and that's what we're gonna need, 64-bit. So as soon as you click on it, you see it started downloading that right now. It may ask for registration sometimes, so make sure you put your email, whatever it needs, and then just click on download. So you need to download this 4 GB ISO on your computer. So we're going to pause the video and then come back once it's done. So while our ISO is getting created, we want to replicate PLab DC01. So let's check the space first. That's the first thing we need to check. So you can go to this PC and you see that, you know what, I think we can give at least 35 to this server, even though this one is less, but we're going to give 35. If you have more space, I think it's good to give it more than 45 would be fine as well, because sometimes you may be doing things and that may be a good thing. So we know that, okay, that the 35 is good enough for us. Then there's a RAM, 4 GB RAM. And also you can go to the virtual CPUs or the processors. Let's go ahead and check how much they're using. So the virtual processor, they're using 2 right here. So we'll also need to keep that in our mind. So this is the usage right here. So, and they have 2 Ethernet. We won't be able to give actually 2 Ethernet for now, but we don't need that for now. So let's go ahead and create a VirtualBox similar to this type of settings. So then when you are doing a lot of these things, then it's at least replicating. And in virtualization, if you can always go up. I mean, if it's more memory required, more processors, you can always go up in that. So our ISO is downloaded, and now we need to create a first PLab DC01, which is a domain controller. Now, of course, when I say domain controller and I'm going to make this domain controller, that is just for you to create a lab. You don't have to really worry about the domain or domain Active Directory, all of that stuff you will learn step by step. But at this point, you just need to create that lab and follow it so we can replicate it just like the instructor labs in your home system. So to create a first virtual machine, we're going to name it PLab DC01 just like in the instructor lab. So we're going to go ahead and click on new, and here we will type PLab DC01. You can change the path if you have a different path. Here we need to give that ISO that we have downloaded. So let's go ahead and look for that, and this is where it is. I already downloaded in my download folder. So if you don't find it here, of course you may have to browse it. So that's another important thing to know. Once you selected the ISO, you may want to come down here. This is the additions right here. I'm just going to do the data center right here, the desktop experience. So make sure you pick that one. And here it says skip unattended installation. I'm going to click on that and click on next because I don't want to, VirtualBox should do a lot of things. Here you see you may have to pick Windows, Microsoft, Windows 2022. If it doesn't pick, if you don't see a 64-bit, this means that you have to go back to the first tips that I gave you on how to get the VirtualBox running on your system specifically, because you may be doing something special with your BIOS to turn on the virtualization and things like that. So if you don't see 64-bit, that means you're missing that and you will have to go back and fix that first. All right, let's go ahead and click on next, and this is why we went back to the PLab, our JSS labs, and we wanted to give it 4 GB RAM, and then we wanted to give it two virtual processors. So here you see processors. I can change it. It's up to your what are you using. Like, if you have a very beefed up laptop, maybe you can go above that, but just stick to the standard for now. Later you can change it if you want to. So here we are going to use a 35 GB space. We're going to click on next and finish this now. Now don't forget that unattended option, because if you don't do that, then it's going to give you different options, and if you see different options, this means you have missed that. Go ahead and right click and delete this whole VirtualBox files, everything where you made that name. Just go to that path and delete that as well. You need to do everything from scratch to match my steps to have no issues. So now we're going to go ahead and right click on this virtual machine, and we're going to click on start, and we're going to do normal. So you're going to get this message, machine is powering up, and that's where you see that it's detecting the ISO, and it's going to go out there and it's going to start installing. The setup process will start in the beginning. So this is where you get the first screen where you saw the instructor using 2016, 19. They're all the same type of installation. So you see this is a 2022 splash screen. We're going to click on next and click on install, and let's see if we can get the PLab DC01 running in our own home environment. So there you go. We got Windows Server 2022 standard. We're going to use a desktop experience 2022 data center for all of our server, because the license, the trial license, does give you all that access. So we're going to click on next. We'll accept the agreement, pretend that I read this, and I'm going to click on next. Whenever you're doing a fresh install on a server, you always click on custom. If you're doing an upgrade from 2016 to 19, 19 to 22, or anything like that, you will click on upgrade. We're going to click on next, and we're going to do a custom installation. This is the space that we have decided. We're going to click on next. And now after this, you have seen this many times as an IT support professional or in your labs or junior sysadmin. You've probably seen this many times. This is all automated process. Now while this is installing, let's just go back to the real world talk over here. In reality, of course, we don't use VirtualBox in our own business environment. They will have a virtualizations like VMware, and that is also going to be a pretty good learning for a lot of IT support professionals or sysadmins, because you have to think about it. Nowadays, 95% of the time, you're not going to actually go into a company and start touching servers like physically. Most of the companies have moved to the hybrid world, which we're using a one big resource or a server that has a lot of virtualization power, and we use all of these servers, install all these servers domain controllers, application servers, and many other things that we need to do with the servers, we put it in a virtualization format like this one. Now, once the server finishes installation, it's going to do a self restart like this one, as you can see on the screen. Now, when you're installing server and let's say you see a full black screen and it's not going away, after some time, maybe you just want to go to machine and just reset it, and once it comes back up, you're going to see this message right here. So let's go ahead and give it a password and then click on finish. Alright, so this is ready. So in this system, we need to do Alt Control Delete by keyboard, and then here's Alt Control Delete. We're going to go ahead and put the password, the one that we have created for this server. So we have Windows 2022 server, but now this is the most important part of this whole lab. You don't want to do anything at this point because we want to create more servers. So I don't want to create everything from scratch again. So what's the best way in VirtualBox? So we're going to click no to this, and we're going to right click and click on run, and here I'm going to type sysprep. Now, if you're new to IT, you probably won't know what I'm doing. What I'm basically doing is I'm kind of shutting down the server with actually no input in it. Like, I don't want to put anything inside the server that will cause issues. Right now, I'm going to basically run this command, and this will remove everything back to its original, and it will shut it down so then I can use it as a master image. So if you're IT support, you probably know what I'm talking about. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a generalize here. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to shut down the server, and I'm going to click OK. So you see I did not do anything, no changes, names, no IP addresses, none of that stuff. Everything is just fresh. I just logged into the server once, went to sysprep, and I'm going to shut it down, and I'm not going to turn it on because I'm going to use a image. Next time whenever I want to run a server, I don't want to go through all the RAM installation. All of that stuff will be already done. So this is why I'm going to make my life easy by doing this type of stuff. Now, I want to warn people that if you don't have a lot of space, a lot of memory, then of course this may not be a good option because this will require more space. So definitely look at your own system. If you have space and you have more RAM, and so this will be making your life a little more easier because you don't have to create the whole server from scratch again. So it's shutting down and it's powered off. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to right click and I'm going to click on clone, and you see this is the clone. I'm going to call this master server image or server. Let's call it server image, and we're going to basically not do these two options and just click on next here. So now whenever I want to create a new server, all I got to do is right click and clone, and I can just rename that, and that's it. I'm gonna not do the whole installation from scratch. So now I'm not going to touch this at this point. This we're gonna come back later on. Right now I'm gonna go back to my original PLab DC01, and now I am going to go to the settings and change the networking for the server. We don't want to use NAT because later on, if you have, let's say, a laptop in your home that is just laying down there, it's an old laptop, and you want to connect it on your same network that you have done the lab, then you can actually do that by using a bridge network. So that's why we're going to use bridge network, and you're going to select the Wi-Fi that you use. If you use a direct connection, then of course you have to pick that one. If you have a LAN connection, so make sure you pick the right one. That's where your your machines are connected to the internet. Here, when you click on advanced, it should say cable connected. So of course we're going to click on OK to that, and now we're going to go ahead and start this server by double clicking on it or right click and start. Now again, when it restarts, it's going to give you the same option again, username and password. The reason we did that for the first time was just to get into the server, sysprep it, and then when we did that sysprep, it actually removed that part. So here we're going to go back and put the username and password, and then get in and start setting it up for a lab environment. Alright, so this is the first screen we're going to get. We're going to click on next, accept the agreement. And here you go. We're going to put the username and password. The username is already there. We're going to put the password. Same steps. And we're going to go ahead and click on keyboard, Control or Delete, and log in. Alright, so once you click on yes to the networking, you're going to see the automatic screen. Let's just keep everything default. So the first thing we need to do is to change the name of the server now, because we want to match it to exactly how it looks like PLab DC01 in the instructor lab. So here you go. We got the 4 GB RAM, and then we're going to go ahead and rename this machine, and we will name it PLab DC01. And we're going to click on next. And then it's going to ask us to restart this machine, and that's fine. Let's go ahead and restart it with the new name, because we need to convert it to a domain controller, and to do that we need to actually restart this machine. So let's go ahead and shut it down, restart. Alright, we're gonna log in again. And now you see that when we did the networking, this also got the network access. So if you want to confirm that did it get a IP address from your normal router that you're using for the laptop, which is the one that I want to use, then you can go to CMD and do IP config and check the IP address. And if your main laptop IP is in the same network and this machine is in the same network, then I think you're good to go. For example, you can see when I did the IP config in the CMD, I got this IP address, which is the network that I'm using. So I think we should be good. So let's go ahead, and now what we need to do is, if you go to the server networking settings, here what we are going to do, we're not going to change a lot of things, because in a normal environment, when you get in when you go to the adapter and you do the server settings, of course you have to do the static IP addresses over here. In this case, we're not going to touch a lot in this system. The only thing that we're going to do over here is we're going to just change the DNS, because we want to use the same IP addresses for the DNS when it gets created. So for that, we're going to use a loop address, which is 12701. And we're going to keep this, and we're going to keep the IP addresses automatic over here, because we want it to get the connections and everything. Now, in a practice lab environment, when you go to the server and you do the IPv4, it probably have static IP addresses. If you go to your work environment and you see the server setting, it's always going to have static IP addresses. Again, we're not at this point, we're not teaching DNS, DHCP, none of that stuff. That's something we're going to cover later on. At this point, we just want to make sure that your lab is running and you're communicating well with the other servers and doing some of the basic stuff in the beginning, so you get more familiar with the server operating system rather than getting stuck somewhere. So just use these settings at the DNS, click OK, and then go ahead and close everything like this. And what we're going to do now, we're going to basically click on Start and go back to the Server Manager. And here I'm going to show you how to convert this server to a domain controller, Active Directory on it. So again, if these things are super new to you, then this means you're missing a lot of fundamentals. You don't know what Active Directory is, domain. You got to go back to our IT support courses. So I assume you already know that stuff. So let's go ahead and convert this server into a domain controller for our lab purpose. And later you will learn about the domain and Active Directory as well in this course at the server level. So we're going to go ahead and add roles and features, and we'll click on Next. And here we're going to click on Next again. And this is all good to go. We're going to click on Next. And here we need to select the Active Directory domain services to make it a domain controller. Click Add Features. We don't need to touch anything else over here. It will automatically select it. We're going to click next here and click next, next, and then install. Now you see that in this lab, I'm not trying to explain anything at this point. Active Directory, group policy, all of that is going to be covered in this course in its own chapters with lectures and everything. At this point, you need to make sure you focus on what I'm doing. You should be following the same steps so you have no issues with creating your own lab in your home environment, so you can replicate most of the things that teachers are teaching. And if I'm doing a lot of home labs in this course or any other courses using this type of setup, then you should be able to follow it. Alright, so once installation is completed, you're going to see this message: promote this server to a domain controller. That is where you actually promote the server to a domain controller. And here we are going to use add a new forest. So this is where we want to create a similar type of domain. So even if you're copying some sort of PowerShell commands later on from our courses, then you should be able to do that. practicelabs.com, like I said, you can change anything to local, your name, whatever you want to give it. Then every time you need to use some sort of script and we give it to you, you need to make sure you change that as well. So we're going to click on next. practicelabs.com is good. It's going to ask for the password here. Make sure you give the same password, or give it a more complex password, by the way. You don't want to give a very normal password because later on you're going to have a lot of issues. Alright, so then click on next here and it's just automatically going to create a DNS for us. Practice Labs automatically picked. We're going to click on next here and next, and here we're going to click on next again. It may issue some warnings. You can ignore that and click on install. Alright, so this is done. It's going to restart with our newly created domain controller, and just wait for it to restart on its own. I'm just going to close this. Now this process can take a little while depending on your system, how fast it is, all that stuff. So make sure you're patient with this. Do not shut down this at this point. Let it run for the first time so you get all the domain services running correctly. Alright, so once the server is ready, this means that this is a domain controller right now with Active Directory. As you can see, we got practice lab / it's exactly the way it looks, how it looks in the instructor labs that I've shown you in the beginning. So let's go ahead and log into this server. So now you have a server where you have Active Directory and all that cool stuff, where you can learn about Active Directory users and computers, group policies, and things like that. You can see on your screen, I'm opening an Active Directory right now just to check if everything is good. Everything looks good to me. If we actually check the tools here, you can see Active Directory, group policy, DNS, all that stuff is ready to go. So PLab DC01 is ready at this point, and that is the main goal. Now remember, in your lab, PLab DC01 needs to be running all the time. Just like in practice lab, you have to run the lab PLab DC01 for all the other servers to work, because all the other things are connected to it. So that's very important. You can see we have practicelab.com as an Active Directory here. And now what we need to do, we need to create a second server so we can match the environment like the trainer PLab DM01, which is the PLab M01 is basically a member server that is connected to the domain controller. So we need to create a new server right now for it to get connected with this server. So yeah, you created this one, PLab DC01. What we're going to do right now, we're going to create a PLab DM01. We're not going to create the other ones, and later on we're going to also create a PLab Win11, which is going to match DC, another server, and a Windows operating system. So that gives you a pretty good standard lab for most of these labs that you're seeing in server administration. So in PLab DM01, they're using 8 GB RAM, I believe. 8 GB RAM. So we're going to also match it with 8 GB RAM, and it has 2 processors, and you can see it's already connected to PLab M01. PLab DC01 it's connected to the practicelab.com domain, which is this one right here. So that is exactly what we're going to do right now. So let's make PLab DM01. So how are we going to do this? By using the image. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to make my life easy. I'm going to do clone, and I'm going to name this PLab DM01. Okay, I'm going to click next, and full clone, I'm going to do finish. Alright, so we got the new server. See, in a few seconds or a minute, you get that without installing the whole operating system again. But because we have to do some changes, we're going to go to the settings here, network, we're going to change that to bridge, and then we're going to go to system, and here we need to use 8 GB RAM because we want to match it. Processor 2 is fine, and we're going to click OK. Later on, of course, you can come and change things. And of course, when you're doing these labs and you see a new server come up and you have the resources, just like that, you change it and add more servers if there's something more extra in one of these instructor labs or they're doing something different. So same way, we're going to go ahead and start this machine by clicking on start here or double click. By the way, when you see that press enter key, you don't need to do that because that's where the ISO is getting connected. You can go to the settings and remove the ISO and that will go away. Now just a tip, if at this point your computer is screaming and everything is getting extremely slow, this means that your whole operating system have less resources like RAM or your CPU. So that's something, of course, you cannot help with that. You either have to go with the online labs or more powerful systems. That's really up to your system. And here again, just like that, in a few seconds we got a whole operating system ready for us without installing a whole operating system again. So let's go ahead and put the same password and get this server ready. We're going to go ahead and do all control delete, log into this server, and the first thing we need to do on the server is to change the name. So let's go ahead and go to system, and here we're going to change this name to the PLab DM01, and you can click on yes to the network. Let's go ahead and change this to PLab DM01, and we're going to click next and then restart the server, because the next step what we want to do is to join this server to the domain that we have just created, practicelab.com, in your virtual environment, PLab DC01, just like in the lab system that I have shown that is available online. Alright, the server is restarted. Let's go ahead and do the all control delete, login. So now this is where the key step of joining a computer to a domain in the way we have set up things. Now in the companies, when you try to join a computer to a domain, because in the company when you're using a network, the IP addresses, DNS, everything is taken care of for you. We're not there yet. We're not learning about that stuff at this moment. If you want to learn about networking, we have different courses for that, but we're going to only do things for our lab. So in our lab, this computer doesn't know anything about this server at this point. So if you're trying to join this machine to that server, the domain or the Active Directory, it's not going to work. So what we're going to do right here, what we will do is basically we're going to go to the advanced system settings on the bottom. So click on that, and then you will see this pop up. So click on computer name, and here you see it's on the work group. So if you think what is work group, then again you need to go back to our IT support courses. This is where we define work group, what is domain, basic stuff. So here we need to add that domain and join this computer domain. So if you type practicelabs.com and make sure your spellings are correct, everything like that is correct, and you click OK, it's not going to work, because at this point it's going out and looking for that DNS name, and basically it doesn't know anything about it. So it's going to give you an error. So if you do a detail error, and it's going to tell you that there's a DNS issue with this. So you see the DNS failure on the bottom. That's how you check errors, by the way, and you can go to the event viewer as well. So what we need to fix this. We need to go back to our network adapter and right click on this and go to properties and go to IPv4 and here. So like I said, in real work environments, you don't need to do this, and you can't do this. If you have many machines, you just can't come in DNS changes manually. You're just doing this for a lab. In environments like that, when you plug in your computer to a network, as soon as it turns on, it gets an IP address that everybody knows in your system. Like that networking is already done for you. So that's something we're going to discuss later. Here in the DNS, we need to put the IP address of this server. So what is the IP address of this server? You can go back to this server and open it and just do ipconfig. And I'm sure if you want to learn about systems administration, you know how to find an IP address. Again, a tip, if you're just shocked right now, what is IP address? How can I find it? Then that means you're lacking extreme fundamentals and you have to go back to the IT support courses. So let's log in and check the IP address of this server. So we're going to do it basic way, no fancy stuff. We're going to do CMD. All right, so let's find the IP address of this server. So we can see that it is 192.168.1.44. So when you do this, I want you to check one more thing. You can do the up arrow, do /all, and make sure to check the physical address of this machine. Because if your physical address is the same as the other machine, you may get a conflict and there may be a lot of issues. So make sure that these two are different, and I'm going to show you how you can change these in virtual environment. So right now you can see we have everything looking good on this server, and the IP address that we're looking is this one right here. So let's go back. I restarted this machine one more time. I'm going to go back to the PLab DM01 and log in. All right, so once you log in, you can come back here and do the system, the same process. And the PLab DM01, we're going to go down to a advanced settings, computer name, change, and then click on domain, and we're going to type practicelabs.com. So when you do practicelabs.com, you see that we haven't done the IP address yet in the network settings, so it may give us an error. There you go. So I'm going to go ahead and actually show you some steps and see if that resolves the issue, because sometimes we may have to do more things. So please watch this video carefully because you may be having an issue. So we're going to go to TCP IPv4. In the DNS, we are going to put that IP address of the domain IP address, DC. We went to that machine and we found that it's 162.1.44. So we're going to click OK and then close this. And if you come back to the settings and click OK, it is going to start working. Now, if you still get an error, this is what you need to do. You basically need to go back to the properties, click uncheck the IPv6 and just click OK and then try again. You need to just uncheck this, making sure that you have the DNS address of the server first. Now, if let's say this is not working, then you may have to go back and check the settings of your network. So you need to make sure that when you go to the settings of the network, the IP addresses, the MAC addresses are not the same. So you can also come and click on advanced and change this deny to allow all. Now with the IPv6 setting, you may want to do this on both machines. Uncheck the IPv6 option that I showed you and then try to connect it again with the domain. If that is still not working, maybe you should come back to the network settings and then uncheck the first adapter, create a new adapter on the second machine, not on the domain, on the second machine that you're trying to connect. And then allow all of these sections, like where you go to the advanced, allow all, making sure that your MAC address is different than the domain MAC address. That's where things can get duplicated by when you're using a second adapter, but making sure that your other options are the same. So if all of that cleared up and you try all these different things and still not working, you may have to reach out to the VirtualBox community and then post your question there. But as you can see, our server is ready now. It's working, Practice Lab. And here we are going to use our administrator account that we have already in the system. And we just need to connect it to the domain. So basically, this is how you join a computer to a domain. And now this machine is going to be joined to this server. If my password is correct, it's going to give me a message. Yeah, there you go. Welcome to the practicelab.com. And now this machine is joined to the domain. So that's like exactly how you have it in practice labs, where you have a domain controller running all the time. Then you have a server that is connected to the domain controller. It's 2022 server. And now we are going to install Windows 11. So we're going to have domain, server, and a client. So we'll be learning a lot of stuff that you're going to see in these courses as a sysadmin, server admin. You're going to do a lot of different tools, and everything needs to be connected like in a real environment. So we're going to now download Windows 11. So go to Google, type Windows 11 evaluation, download ISO, and here is the first link. You just click on it, and then we're going to basically click on this download ISO enterprise, and you need to fill out this information and then click on download now. Once you fill out the information, you're going to get this form right here. We're going to click on 64-bit edition, and that download will get started. All right, Windows 11 ISO is downloaded, so let's go ahead and create that virtual machine as well. So we're going to go ahead and go to new, and here we're going to type PLab Win11, or you can probably exactly name it like the PLab Win 10, the way they have named it, but I'm just going to name it PLab Win 11. I think this is something for us to know. This is Windows 11. And we're going to go back here to the downloads. This is the one that we just downloaded. And you can see that we have it automatically detected Windows 11. And I'm going to skip the unattended installation. That's very important. And again, this is Windows 11. So we're just going to, because we do have a RAM, if you don't have too much, then of course you cannot give it 8 GB. You can still give it 4. And here 2 is fine. So I'm gonna get next here, and for the space, I'm just gonna keep it 35, and then click next, and then finish this. So we're gonna go ahead and start this virtual machine and install the Windows 11 as well. Now, if you get a message on the top that press any key, you have to then now press it because you're installing a Windows from scratch. And when you already install the machine and you see that message, then you don't need to press it because you're not installing it machine from the ISO. So whenever you're installing something and you see that, quickly you gotta go inside the machine. You have to click in there and then click any key on your keyboard to get to this screen. If your installation is already done, then you just let that go, and it's just gonna go back to its operating system. So here we're gonna click on install, same process, and get this agreement, accept it, click next, and we're installing a brand new operating system custom, and click next. And now it's installing Windows 11 for us. All right, once the installation is over, it's going to do the same restart on its own. Very simple process. All right, well, Windows 11 is installed. Let's go ahead and click on United States. That's where I am. We're going to keep US and skip this one. I mean, you can change these settings for your, depending on what you want from Windows 11. We're just adding a client so we can match our lab. So when we are learning about servers and we need to do something on the client, maybe deploy group policy, deploy applications from server and things like that, then we will need the client machine, because at the end of the day, there are going to be applications as a server administrator that you need to deploy on the servers where clients have to access. So that could involve web servers and things like that from the client side, and that's why we need Windows 11. All right, so here we want to do this local settings. We don't have a Microsoft option at this point. We're going to do sign in option, and you see where we have domain join instead. I'm going to use that. So it's just the normal local settings. Enter your name. So you can put, let's say, admin, password, whatever password, but remember your password. And it's going to ask you for security questions. So go ahead and finish that and click on next. That's your personal option. I'll just keep everything default and click next, next to finish everything. And there you go. We got Windows 11 installed as well. So now we got everything fresh, 2022 servers, Windows 11. So at this point, what do you need to do right now? I'm still gonna do the same process by going into the sysprep, because if I have to do more Windows 10 installations, I really don't want to sit here and do everything from scratch again. Again, I have the resources in this laptop, so I can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and run the sysprep and generalize this and shut down this machine. I'm going to click OK. I didn't do any changes of name or anything. Yes, I did create an account over there. That's fine. We can make a different account if you guys come across, like when you're creating a new machine and you see, oh, there's a admin account already available and it doesn't remove it or something like that, then of course you can create a new one. That's fine. So, but at this point, I want to create something like this because it's going to become my image, the next one, just like what I did for the server. And next time I can create Windows 11 like in a 60 seconds again and again whenever I need it for whatever purpose. All right, shutting down. So once it's powered off, we're going to go ahead and do the clone, and we'll call it or we'll just call it Windows 11 image, Windows 11, and we're going to just call it an image. So we're not going to use this machine ever. We're just going to keep cloning from it, so we can get the good results. So we'll do full clone and leave that in the system here. All right, once the image is done, then let's go back to the original machine and we're going to go ahead and start it again and now work on Windows 11, change the name to PLab in 11, join it to the domain, the DC, the way we did for the server. Same with the client, so it's going to be a one network that we are going to start working and learning things. So while that's coming up, let me give you some learning tips. The best thing about the home lab is right now when you finish everything, you know about virtualization, you know about how to install the operating systems, two different ones, server and client, and then you know how to join the operating systems to the domain. And then after that, you're learning inside the systems start basically that's how you start learning. But even just doing this lab, you have learned few major things that people actually ask in the interviews. Do you know how to add a machine to a domain? Do you know what is operating system? Do you know what is server, what is client? You should be able to give these answers at this point because you're learning about server administration. But still, if you're new to IT and you do your labs like this, you still learn a lot from just doing labs. Now we're going to do the same process again by clicking on all that information. So I'm going to finish that and get back to the same screen that I just did like a minute ago. So here, when you get to this option, same sign in option, we're going to use domain join and we're going to use admin. You see now admin is already available in this, it's already there. So we're going to have to change that. We can just call it something like help desk maybe. And now put the password. Oh, actually I clicked on back. Let's do the help desk. Confirm the password. Do the security question. All right, so once your Windows 11 is up and running, we need to change the name. That's the first thing by right-clicking on the Windows, go to System, and we need to give it PLab Win 11 name because right now it has a generic name. As you can see it right here, rename this PC, and we're going to go ahead and name that PLab Win 11 and restart this machine. And after restarting this, we are going to join this to the domain, and that will be the last part of this whole lab. You have everything ready to go. All right, after restart, you see we have Windows 11. We're going to go ahead and log in, and those two accounts are there too. So, okay, so right now we need to join it to domain. So you know how to do this. Go to System. You can also search domain. There are other cool ways, but you can find that later on. I'm just showing you just a normal GUI ways of doing things. So go to the system, and then we will click on advanced systems, and then we will get to the screen. So let's see. There you go. Maximize this. I don't know why this search just came up. Okay. Things a little slow. So we're gonna go ahead and go down all the way and find advanced system settings. So you see the computer name right here, change, and it's not going to work because remember, I didn't put the DNS settings, and that is a common mistake a lot of people do. Practicelabs.com. If I just try to click on it and I click OK, it's just going to give me an error, just like that one. So I'm going to cancel that. How do you fix it? You go to networking settings. And again, a reminder, this is just for the lab environment. You don't do these in a real business. They have already taken care of this. So here you see we have all of this different type of settings here that in your server it was a little different than this one. So if you want to change the DNS, you need to click on DNS edit, and here you need to click on manual, and we're going to turn on the IPv4 and prefer DNS. We're going to type 192.168.1.44, and we're going to click save. So now we have a preferred DNS manual assignment right here. It's not automatic. So if I go back and click OK, and if it fails, then we need to do more into this. I'll show you exactly what we need to do. So at this point, you see that it still didn't work. So let's go ahead and check the details of what is going on here. The first thing, did we put a correct IP address, by the way? Was it 42 or 44? So let's just double click and find that, because that's where another mistake people would do, and probably I did the same thing. Maybe. No, it's 44, so that's correct. So gotta go back, and we are still getting a timeout. So 162, 192, 168, 144. 192, 168, 144 is a domain. Yes, that's correct. So everything looks good over here. So let's go into our CMD and type the IP config. Oh, okay. Look at this. That's the issue right there. So you see, this is why you have to use these commands to find out. So right now we are not even using the correct network. Unfortunately, that was a mistake, and that's good. Actually, we found that, because you may come across the same issues. So go ahead and power off your machine or shut it down, however you like it. But you need to go to the power off settings, and then here we need to go to the network, and we need to remove that NAT. This was the first thing we should have done. So bridge adapter, here I'm just going to do allow all. Sometimes you don't need to do this. This is something that I'm just doing it, but you don't need to do allow all. If you want to keep it deny and then try it, if it works, then just don't touch it. But for now, because I've made the same settings, I'm just going to use this bridge, same network, same Wi-Fi, and I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And now I'm going to start the machine again. And I think we changed the DNS, so at this point I don't need to go back and change the DNS again. It should just work. If not, then we'll have to do more troubleshooting. Alright, so now let's go back and log into this machine and see if we got the right IP. So the first thing we need to do inside this machine is to go to the CMD and check if we got the right IP address by CMD IP. So you see that now we're on the right network, 138. So if we go back to the settings, and here we go to advanced settings, computer name, change. Let's do practice labs. We already changed the DNS, so that should stay there. And there you go. So that was the issue when we created the machine. We didn't change the network. It gave it a different IP addresses, different network. Of course, it wouldn't know how to connect to this then. Then we went to the DNS added the DNS of the server, and then now if I just use the username of the domain, this is a domain account, by the way, domain admin account. And when we try that, you see our Windows 11 is also part of our network now. So I'm going to restart this machine. And if you want to confirm, you can go back to your domain like this, domain controller, go to tools, go to Active Directory. And once you go to the Active Directory and go to the practice labs and computers, you see your DM01, this one, and Win11 is a part of the domain. And that's how you created a whole network, just like these labs that we are doing in our courses. You go to your website, your course like this, and then you open the labs. And of course, as a member, you open these machines and devices very easily from a web. Yes, but sometimes maybe you want to keep the settings for a very long time because these labs will reset after 1.5 hours of idle connectivity. And yes, of course, there's no match for these labs because, at the end of the day, this is a more than $50,000 worth of systems, meaning there are servers, there are cybersecurity stuff, there's networking going on, there's Linux going on, AWS, Azure. You won't be able to do all of these labs in your home like that without putting extreme amount of effort and, of course, money. But it just gives you some basics where you are learning something in our server related courses or cybersecurity related courses or Linux, whatever you're learning, and you're like, okay, at least I can download some of the evaluation from the Microsoft and or other vendors, and I can play around with it in my home environment. And so my tip is going to be replicate as much as you can, but do not go crazy on this. If you feel like it's getting stuck, it's giving you stress, then that is the moment you should decide you should go with the online platform like ours or somebody else. That's something as an IT professional. One day you will realize that you're wasting too much time on fixing tiny, tiny things and not learning the right way. Which is, if there are systems available, there are guides available, then you need to just learn it from it and move on with your career, rather than getting stuck and try to resolve something extremely small that may cost a lot of energy and time for you. So this is how you do the lab. We hope that you're going to use your own lab and try to replicate a lot and learn the skills. And thank you so much for watching this video.